Heyo everyone! Let's get bricky!
Heyo everyone, I'm MacGyver, and welcome back to the King of Questions. I don't know why I just did that. I mean, this is only the second time I've ever actually recorded this sort of thing, so I don't actually know how well you guys like this. Let me know down in the comments below, even though this is probably going to be the third episode, because this is a very special episode. That is because today is all about a very special thing that I really love and hold dear, and that is D&D. This isn't actually my copy of the book, it's actually a library's copy. Because it's an expensive book, people. The Player's Handbook ain't cheap. So, we're going to be talking about D&D today for today's questions. And these are questions that have already been created by somebody. I don't actually know if there's a name given. But this was a set of questions that a favorite dungeon master of mine, Mark Hulmes of the Oxcast, who runs the D&D campaign High Rollers, Eroris, Rogue's Gambit, a couple other the little ones that they've done in the past. He's a wonderful DM. He also runs his channel Tabletop Weekly over on YouTube and did a video based on these 20 D&D questions and everything there. And I was thinking about it, I was like, that's a really great set of questions, and I was sort of wondering how I would answer them as I was going along with it, so picked up the local Player's Handbook to help me along with some of these that I'm going to answer. And as you can see, these are the questions here, these 20 questions that I will be answering to the best of my ability. Some of them will be a lot shorter to answer, a lot of them possibly a bit longer. And yeah, then there'll be a bit more about why I really want to do this at the end. But we will sort of jump right in right here, and we'll see how well my editing skills are. I'm going to try and post voiceover pictures and stuff more and test my editing skills with my very limited software, so stay with me if this is still a bit janky, but otherwise we're going to jump right on in. Question 1. If you were a D&D character, what race and class would you be? Now this question I've sort of taken besides what would I want to be, as what would you be if you were a D&D character, to where I'm thinking it's more about who I actually am as a person. And so I actually read quite deeply into the races and classes of this, of which for a lot of them I've never really done, just because there were a lot of them I was never really all that interested in playing, so it took me a moment to really dig in. And for race, it really came down between Wood Elf and Tiefling. The Elf only because of their very neutral sort of nature. They're very kind, very introverted sort of people. They only stay within their close knit communities. They're very passionate people. And the Wood Elf aspect of it only because the Drow are normally seen as more hostile elves or dark elves, if you don't like the term drow, in the D&D universe. More violent, they worship the goddess Loth, and they sort of just tentatively don't like people as much. And then the high elf, not so much either, only because they're very much more pompous, they're more full of themselves, like, yes, we're the best sort of creatures there are, you will worship us and do our trade and everything, we are the best among you sort of people. And the Wood Elves are the sort of that happy medium in between, and they sort of just reflect a lot of my personalities and traits. And then the Tieflings, not so much the part that they're violent, they're outcasts, that they're people that everybody hates, but more of the aspect of they can also be very passionate people. They keep to themselves. If they love something, they love it a lot. And that they sort of, keep to themselves because they're scared of everything, what people will think of them. And some other aspects in there that, you see for tieflings. So it just, sounded right for me. For class, it actually came between two of them. One being the druid, the other being monk. And for the druid, because the druid has a bit of a wide range of pathways you can go down with the class, it definitely looked like if I didn't go Circle of the Moon, which I did see some aspects in there that I liked, it would definitely be Circle of Land or Grassland. And yes, the Circle of the Moon are definitely more the people who are private. They deal a lot more with beast shapes and everything, which I think is really cool, and they deal with more with animals, which might not really scream me a whole lot, but I do really love animals as much as I'm not a dog person. I love animals, and when I was a druid, that was one of my favorite things to do, was to transform into animals and different beasts, and it was just a lot of fun to sort of be something that you aren't, and to sort of be wild and free and sort of do whatever you wanted, which I really love and appreciate. And the Circle of the Moon are a lot more passionate people as well that care for nature. And then Circle for Land or Grassland. When you look at their tree, Circle of the Land, with the their circle being Grassland. Only because the Circle of the Lands are basically a very sort of neutral thing, to where you more get specialized within whatever the universe is for your D&D campaign of how the elves work, as well as the circles. They have the natural recovery, which means they get their spell slots back better. And the Grassland has things like Pass Without Trace, Invisibility, Daylight, Haste, Divination, Video Movement, Dream, Insect Plague. And those just sort of screamed more things that were like me. Things to sort of keep myself a little more private, but also things to sort of make me stand out a little bit. The monk, however, on the other hand, definitely also screams myself, not so much for the martial arts status, because, let's be honest, I know just about nothing there, but very much their aspect of looking at the world of, they're much more quieter folk that are passionate on a certain thing. They don't need to say a whole lot to necessarily get a point across, and that they also don't have to use violence for everything. That things can be done peacefully, tactfully, through knowledge, but not necessarily all knowledge. Just knowing what you need to know. With the subclass, there being way of the 4 elements. Just the way that you manipulate the earth, the wind, fire, water, stuff like that, just really screams me of using everything in a creative fashion and using it for a specific purpose. Just really screams me versus what is their other ones? They have Way of the Shadow, which is a lot more of dark fighting, more of that of focusing on killing and everything there. There's Shadow Step thing, which is a very interesting ability, and one of my friend Aaron's favorites to have used, although the DM may have, hampered it down a little bit, which, there's some debate there about if he did or didn't. But it just didn't really seem like me. It seemed a bit too violent. And Way of the Open Hand, definitely heavy on the fighting technique there. And I thought the Way of the Elements, the manipulation of stuff around me to use with my fighting just seemed a lot more accurate. So that would be me, is either Wood Elf or Tiefling, and Druid or Monk. Post down in the comments below which one you would think, as well as any of your answers, or if you guys do a video, link me to your video, that way I can watch it and see what you guys think if you guys are big into D&D. Question number 2. When and how did you first discover D&D, and when did I start playing? So I actually came across this January of 2016, just after the Yogscast Jingle Jam, where they started their D&D group, High Rollers, with Mark Hulmes as the DM, Chris Tronomus from Hat Films, Kim Richards, Matt Toffolo, who was at the beginning, and Katie. Shoot, I forget Katie's name all of a sudden. I'm sorry. And she's one of my favorite people on there. And they started a D&D campaign, which their first campaign just ended late this summer, and I'm still trying to catch up. But at the beginning, I was really intrigued because I'd always heard about D&D. I'd heard whispers of the Critical Role group. I sort of just been interested as to what it is and how it is they went about doing it. Something that seemed so much make-believe and pretend to just come up with at your whim, at the seat of your mind, and how dice played into it. I was really intrigued, and watching it just became engrossed in the story and how much actual character development there was in it, and how it was that you go, okay, you come across a dragon, roll some dice, alright, you hit it, next person, alright, you kill it, you get some gold, alright, what do? Okay, you go back to here. It wasn't so point and click. It didn't seem like a game like Skyrim, to where you were able to get more engrossed because there's other people there, and you could personalize it besides just your appearance. It just really intrigued me, so I kept with it, watching it week after week, and finally, when the semester ended, I talked to my friends, and surprisingly, they had started a small D&D group, a couple of the older ones, and so that summer we actually started our first D&D group, which, ooh, let me tell you, that was an interesting 3 sessions, all of like 6 hours each, because, yeah, I'll get into that in a different video, because, well, maybe even later in this video, who knows. It was very interesting. So it was that summer, basically like 6 months after when I started playing, and I ended up playing with that group of guys for a good year and a half before I sort of fell away because school and work sort of took over, unfortunately, and so it's been almost a good year since I've played it last, but I really love it and really enjoy it. Number 3, okay, now this is more, what is my favorite class, race, and subclass? And funnily enough, this is going to be exactly like which one I would be. It's going to be an elf, either a ward or drow, or tiefling, because I love elves. I really have always loved them since reading Lord of the Rings when I was in 5th grade, and even seeing it, I think, slightly before then. It really intrigued me just because they were a bit taller. They seem to have much more knowledge and everything. The pointed ears, they used to be more adept at ranging, as a ranger with a bow and arrow and archery, and it just seemed very fluid, that they knew what they were doing, they did it for a reason, and they did it very gracefully. And they always intrigued me, and they have improved stats in the D&D universe, depending on if your DM changes anything. They don't really have to sleep, they just sort of go into this trance to sleep and meditate. The drow also, with their deep lore already ingrained into them. I've always found interest, especially their different color and finding when I joined, because Matt, who was on for the first year of High Rollers, his character, Trelamar Alif, was a drow, and finding the history there of the people and everything, and how you can play the character, I just found very engaging, which was one of the reasons why he was one of the first races I played. And the Tiefling, because Kim, who plays Juto Zing, I'm probably butchering the last name of that, I'm sorry. It's a very Chinese sounding name, very beautiful. She played one, and they were very different from the other races because of their background, depending on how you play that up. Their appearance very much sets them apart as well, of being you know, a bit darker skin depending on what they are, the all red eyes, the horns, the tail, and the very sort of demonic appearance to them, while still being very humid, and depending on how you play them, very against their upbringing and their past, just because they don't want to be associated with all of this bad and evil. As well as certain aspects like they naturally have the Hellish Rebuke spell that they can use once a day, or I think once per fight, which is very interesting as well. And yeah, they're just really fun to play. For race, it's not surprising it's Druid or Monk. Druid because watching Katie play Alora Galanadel in High Rollers, seeing the spells that she was able to use was very intriguing, how creative you could be with them. As well, of course, Beast Shape. I mean, that's awesome as well. You can transform into animals and fight, which is really, really cool. And they're just it's a very creative class that you can do a lot with, and I just absolutely love. Just because there's so much you can do with it. And I just wanted to try it out, and I loved it. It was one of my favorite characters ever. A character called Galcian Autumnrun. I just loved playing him. And of course the other one being a monk, because you're a glass canyon half the time. Because once you get high enough level, you can attack, or you can attack with your weapon, and then you can attack with your weapon again, punch with your fists, and if you want to, spend a key point, and attack with your fists again. It's awesome. Plus, some of the magic you can do is amazing, like water rip, stone wall, some of the things with fire, like burning hands. It's amazing what you can do. There's just such a wide range to the character. It's really cool to play it. But I've also played other classes. The Ranger one, I can't really say too much, because when I was a Ranger, I wasn't really able to use him as a Ranger that much. I was more using the actual character than his abilities in the 2 campaigns I was on. So it's a little hard to say. I wanted to say I like it, but I haven't played one enough. And the other one that I've played was a Gunslinger Bard hybrid, and that one was interesting to play. Fighting Rise, it had its ups and downs. The character, I think I just loved playing a bit better. So yeah, I'd be interested to try it out again on somebody maybe a bit more serious and not so Jack Sparrow-esque. Question 4. If you could improve any stat IRL, this being the 6 core stats of Intelligence, Wisdom, Charisma, Strength, and Dexterity. Am I missing one? Strength, Dexterity, Constitution. I always forget Constitution. It's a weird one that you never really use all that often, depending on spells and saving throws. But it's a decent one. Which of these would I improve, or 2 half as much? Which would you choose and why? I'm actually going to flip back to the character sheet here. It's definitely between 3 of them, and these are definitely 3 that I'll be talking about later, I believe, as well. And that would be Dexterity, Wisdom, or Charisma. Only because Dexterity in the game, if you were to apply it to real life, helps with things like acrobatics, stealth, sleight of hand, sort of things, which I think would be interesting. Things that acrobatics I'm not good at all, but stealth and sleight of hand, things sort of like that, I won't say I'm bad or I'm good at, but it'd be something that'd be nice to improve and just have a bit more of. Wisdom handles a multitude of everything. Wisdom, insight, medicine, perception, survival. Just having more knowledge there, I think, is always helpful. Just to be prepared for any situation, I think is great. If you can't actually do, knowing how or how to get around it, I think is just as good. And then Charisma. In the game, that does things like deception, intimidation, performance, persuasion. Just being able to talk better to people, I think, might be interesting to help. I'm a bit of an introverted, not really shy, but just more of an introverted sort of person. So maybe that would maybe help me stand out, talk to people more, keep up conversations, make more friends, stuff like that. I think that'd be nice to have. So it'd be one of those three. Maybe a bit more on the wisdom or charisma, if I had to say. So maybe up both of those half as much. Number 5. In 3 sentences, what's your most epic moment from a game? Oh, most epic moment. This was a bit hard to pick out. Just because there were a lot of really good moments from campus. I wouldn't really call any of them epic, maybe. Maybe 1 or 2 of them I'd say epic, but there's a lot of good ones. So I'm actually going to give a good, really great moment from all the campaigns I've been in, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 of them. One of them was a run shot, which we only did one night, and another one I really wasn't a part of. I was in there for one session, and then school got too much, so I won't really be talking about that character at all. The first one is, in one campaign I was playing a tiefling monk, and we were about to go and fight this giant battle against this big capital of an enemy worshipping the dragon Garrix, the dragon god Garrix, which is basically, for any of you who are knowledgeable or unknowledgeable in D&D lore, is basically the polar opposite of Bahamut, the dragon god of justice and rightness and stuff, sort of like that. And we were going in, and beforehand we needed to, we were trying to rally up the troops, and so because I was thought to be more the tactical person and everything, I thought things through. They asked me to give a speech, and funnily enough, the speech I gave was a riff off of the speech given by General Hux in the Force Awakens movie, which had come out, I think a year before. I think depending on when this took place. Yeah, basically come out a year before, and I basically changed the words around to it, and it was hilarious. And it was really good. It gave everybody chills. So that was a really great moment. The one where I played Galcian Autumn Run when I was the druid, we were going into our last battle, and basically like my first turn or first 2 turns, it basically played out as I threw out my 2 golden lines, my 2 figurines of power, figurines of fortune. Basically they're these I believe they're rare or legendary artifacts, which are basically these 2 golden line figurines that when you throw them out and say a command word, they turn into 2 controllable golden lions, which are really cool. I basically threw those out. I summoned 8 panthers to fight with me, and I turned myself into a hippogriff before going into battle. It was amazing, and I basically wrecked camp by just killing everyone, just because in my single turn I had like 11 attacks. Oh, I had more than that because the lions each could attack twice, and all of the panthers could basically attack once or twice, and then I could attack when it was my turn. It was ridiculous. It was so epic because my turn was basically me and the DM just constantly rolling dice. I had handfuls of d20 to see how much I hit, and he'd roll for all of the enemies. It was hilarious and awesome all at the same time. There was one where I played a character, Keither, can't remember his last name off the top of my head. I played Keith. He was a very Jack Sparrow-like person, and we were deep inside an enemy fortress to figure out these plans and everything, because a friend of ours had infiltrated and snuck us in. And inside were these plans for basically gunpowder weapons and cannons. And basically they had me come in as supposedly the expert on all of this. And we didn't want the enemy to have these plans. But of course, we didn't have an exit strategy at all. We had fought our way in, basically. And now that we were here, we were like, what do we do? So, playing my character as I would, I basically am holding the plans and say, yep, these look good, and then poof, I dimension door out of there behind a wall, basically run over to these stables and set it on fire, leaving the entire rest of the party to find a way to escape, which they all did, thankfully. None of them died. Most of them were also magic users that could use the same thing. It was interesting though, because one of the characters who did teleport up didn't have arms. Otto was a very interesting character my friend Wesley played. So that was pretty hilarious. One of my characters had an epic betrayal at the end of campaign where I was the only person left, and basically to save my own character's life I had to kill him in prison. And so I ended up doing that. Otherwise, from the last campaign, it wasn't epic moments, except for the fact that two of the players, Micah and Cook, were literally playing Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine as characters. And when the two of them meet, for the entire game, no lie, this went on for almost 3 hours. Anytime they talked to each other or they attacked, they only used Star Wars quotes that their character used. About an hour and a half in, it started to get a little old, but it was hilarious because of how good to character they were. It was really funny. Number 6. Have any of your characters die in a game? If so, how? Well, no. Well, actually, yes and no. This is a hard question to answer, simply because there's a bit of discrepancy. One of them, my first character I played, there was a moment where one of the characters actually full-on died. This was like, I think the first this was still the first session. One of the guys took so many hit points, he full-out died. And I was brought to 0 hit points. I wasn't dead, I was just unconscious at that point. But a lot of them figured I was dead, but I wasn't. And that led to some other shenanigans, which, yeah, led to some things, to them thinking I was dead, leading me to do some things my character might not have wanted to do, but may have actually done anyways. Case in point, he wasn't actually dead. A lot of people figured he was. My character Galcian almost died, but I made it to where he didn't. The campaign with Galcian went on for a good while, and there was a lot of things that I did in that campaign that actually had me earn inspiration points, which is a special thing that you can use. And because the last couple sessions were in person, we actually used the inspiration point cards, which I think is very similar to the deck of many things. And basically you could play one of these inspiration cards and they had certain abilities. And one of them was, instead of dying or going unconscious, you come back with 1 hit point. And it was very hard for me, and I actually played this card. Part of me wish I didn't, for RP's sake, but I decided to do it anyways because it was a big major battle. It was going to end the campaign, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to play it. And so I didn't actually die. I was close to. Part of me almost wanted to, but I was like, no. My character Eden, it's hard to say because there's a bit of discrepancy here. Also leading to the deck of many things. We had just done this big whole thing, and we come back and we find our commander with this person, which is the human form of the god Bahamut. And he's like, you've done well and everything, I'm going to allow each of you to pick 5 cards from the deck of many things. And we were ecstatic. and we could stop at any time. We didn't have to choose all 5. We didn't have to do it at all. And so, the deck of many things, if you don't know it, you need to look it up. It's basically a deck of regular playing cards. But the thing is yeah, you basically pick a card, you pull it, and basically whatever is on that card happens. And there's tons of things. Like, my first couple ones were decent ones. One of them was, somewhere in the world, there is a castle that is now officially mine, with a large amount of gold in it. The problem is I don't know where it is, and it's overrun by monsters. But in other words, it's mine. Another one was I gained 2 points in diplomacy, which is actually an old D&D thing, which you have to fill around with a couple of your stats to make it work. That was one of them. But the last card I pulled was the King of Clubs, otherwise known as the Void, which means as soon as I looked at the card, my soul was instantly captured, taken out of my body, and sent to another plane of existence. And that's how we ended that camp. That's how we ended that session. So, effectively, I was alive and not alive. It's just my soul was somewhere else. There's a bit of discrepancy of how you want to characterize that. Technically, I wasn't dead because I got my soul back. But then again, I wasn't. And then my character, Katho, supposedly he died along with my character's sister for some reason. I don't exactly know all the particulars there because I actually wasn't a part of that session. So, not exactly sure what all went down there.